A cold CEO found a girl feeding her baby under the rain, unaware she'd lost everything but hope. The sleet had turned to cold, stinging rain by the time Callum Frost's car slowed to a crawl near the intersection. The windshield wipers thudded in steady rhythm, smearing the gray of the city lights. He had just left the main Frost Utilities production plant, his last stop of the day. Quality control at the newest assembly line had run longer than expected, and now he was stuck in traffic along the industrial road leading out of the district. He tapped his fingers against the steering wheel, eyes flicking between the GPS and the blur of headlights in the rearview mirror. A few feet ahead, his gaze snagged on something out of place, a splash of stillness under the flickering orange street lamp by the bus shelter. It was a woman, hunched on a wet bench, arms wrapped tightly around something cradled in her lap. Callum squinted. A baby. The child was swaddled in a light blanket, pressed against the woman's chest. She held a thin, tattered coat over them both, her shoulders shivering from the rain. The baby made a soft coughing sound, barely audible through the glass, but enough to make him glance again. He checked the time, nearly 9 p.m. Against his better judgment, Callum turned on his hazard lights and pulled to the curb. He grabbed the spare rain poncho from the back seat and stepped into the downpour. The cold bit into his skin immediately. As he approached, the woman looked up. Her face was pale, damp hair clinging to her temples. Tired eyes met his briefly, cautious, then confused. "I'm fine," she said quickly, clutching the baby tighter. "We're just waiting for the next bus." He didn't reply, only held out the rain poncho. She hesitated. "Really, we're okay." Then the baby coughed again, sharper this time. Without a word, Callum crouched slightly, shielding the baby with the poncho. The woman looked like she might protest, but her arms loosened, just a little. "My car's right there," he said. "It's warm. I'll take you somewhere close." She stared at him for a long second, eyes flickering with doubt, and something else. Weariness, maybe, or the instinct of a mother weighing what her child needed more than her pride. She nodded once. Inside the car, the heater hummed quietly. Sharon sat stiffly in the passenger seat, the baby resting against her chest. Her clothes were damp, sleeves frayed at the edges. Her coat smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and rain. Callum didn't ask her name, and she didn't offer it. She murmured to the baby as he drove, soft nothings, like, "Almost home, little one," and, "It's okay now, Mommy's here." The apartment building, she pointed out, was old, half its lights flickering or out entirely. He parked without a word. As she opened the door to leave, he reached behind him and placed a folded sweater and a small bag of pastries from his earlier meeting on the seat beside her. She looked at the items, then at him, hesitant. "For the night," he said simply. Her voice was quiet. "Thank you." She stepped out with the baby, shielding the child's head from the rain. Callum waited until she reached the stoop before shifting into gear. But just before he drove off, he checked the rearview mirror one last time. She hadn't gone inside. She stood beneath the flickering porch light, holding the child close, her head bowed. Not moving. Just standing. A small, wet silhouette under the weight of everything. He drove off. And for reasons he didn't understand yet, he didn't turn the radio back on. The soft ding of the service elevator echoed faintly through the empty lobby as Sharon stepped out, holding a bucket in one hand and a worn cleaning cloth in the other. The Frost Utilities office tower loomed quietly above her, tall, glass-fronted and cold under the flickering fluorescent lights. It had been 4 days since the man in the car had given her a ride in the rain. She hadn't expected to see him again, certainly not here. The job had come through the employment center. Late-night janitorial work, not glamorous, but steady. Sharon had signed the contract quickly, never noticing the company name until she arrived for orientation. Frost Utilities. She stood at the back of the briefing room while the floor manager read out shift schedules and instructions. Her name was called last. "You'll be assigned to the executive floors, floors 21 to 23, mostly empty after hours. Keep it quiet." She nodded. Quiet was something she'd learned to be. That night, as the building emptied floor by floor, Sharon pushed her cart down the silent hallway of the top floor. Through the glass walls, city lights blinked below. She moved like a ghost, sweeping, wiping, replacing trash bags. No sound but the soft scuff of her sneakers and the occasional click of her spray bottle. Room by room, she made her way through the executive wing. Most doors were closed, lights off, but one office, at the far end, still glowed with the light of a desk lamp. Inside sat a man, back turned to the door, sleeves rolled up. He was reviewing reports, brow furrowed in concentration. Sharon didn't look too closely. The name on the plaque outside the door read, Callum Frost. She paused. So it was him. But she said nothing. She kept her eyes low, cleaned the glass quietly, and moved on. The routine became familiar. Night after night, Sharon returned. Always the last to enter, always the first to leave. She never made noise, never disturbed anything. But slowly, Callum began to notice. The first time, it was the faint smell of lemons, fresh but not chemical. He looked around and realized the streaks on his office window were gone. His desk had been wiped, but his papers were untouched. The next time, it was the keyboard. He never asked anyone to clean his workspace. He hated people touching his things. But this time, the keys weren't sticky, no grime in the crevices, just clean. Then one night, he left a stack of files scattered across his desk in frustration. When he returned the next morning, they were neatly arranged, tabs aligned, untouched, except for being better. Callum frowned. He checked security footage, not for suspicion but curiosity. There she was, the girl from the rain, hair tied in a messy bun, sleeves rolled up, cloth in hand, moving with precision. Never more than what was needed, never lingering. Her name tag read, Sharon. He should have recognized her sooner, but that night on the curb had blurred into one of those strange, quiet moments life tossed at you, and then stole away before you could make sense of it. A week later, it happened. Callum exited his office around 10:30 p.m., tired, rubbing his eyes, half reading a message on his phone. Sharon turned the corner at the same time, pushing her cart. They nearly collided. She gasped softly, pulling the cart back. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, eyes wide as she stepped aside. Callum froze. For a moment, they both stood still, two shadows in a glass hallway. Their eyes met properly for the first time, not through rain, not across a street. Here, under white office lights. He opened his mouth as if to say something, then stopped. Sharon dipped her head in apology, already stepping away. Callum watched her retreat down the corridor, her figure folding back into the quiet. He didn't speak, but he watched her go. And for the first time in weeks, he didn't mind the smell of lemons lingering in the air. The building was nearly silent, the kind of quiet that settled deep into the walls after midnight. Sharon moved through the storage hallway, the same way she did every night. Careful steps, soft wheels on the mop bucket, cloth draped over her shoulder. But tonight, something was different. From behind the cracked door of the security room, near the supply closet, a soft, muffled whimper echoed, a child's cry, short and strained. Sharon slipped inside without turning on the light. Her daughter, Lily, sat on a folded blanket in the corner, cheeks flushed red, tiny fists tugging at her shirt. "Shh, baby," Sharon whispered, crouching low. "Just a little longer. Mommy's almost done." Lily coughed, a raspy, wet sound. Sharon's hands trembled as she pressed them to the little girl's forehead, burning hot. "No, not tonight." She glanced toward the hallway. She still had 2 floors to finish, and if she left without notice, she might not have a job to return to. Her rent was already 3 days overdue. Lily cried louder. Sharon bit her lip. She rocked the baby gently, humming under her breath. A lullaby her mother used to sing before things changed. Outside the door, footsteps approached. She froze. It was Callum. He wasn't supposed to be here tonight. Yet there he stood in the dim light, dark coat slung over one shoulder, watching the scene before him with a mixture of confusion and concern. "Why is there a child here?" he asked flatly, his eyes narrowing. Sharon stood, cradling Lily close. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I had no choice. She was running a fever. I couldn't find anyone to watch her." He glanced around the room. The folded blanket, the tiny bottle, the worn-out stuffed rabbit lying nearby. The child coughed again, this time harder. Her whole body jerked with the effort. Sharon's face paled. "Something's wrong. She's never coughed like this." Callum didn't hesitate. "Come on," he said, already turning toward the exit. "We're going." Sharon blinked. "What? But—" "I said let's go," he repeated, not waiting for her to argue. In the car, Lily whimpered softly as Sharon held her in the back seat. Callum didn't speak. He drove fast but careful, hands tight on the wheel. They arrived at a small 24-hour clinic tucked between a pharmacy and a closed cafe. Callum parked and walked them in, then stepped aside as Sharon spoke with the receptionist. Inside the exam room, the doctor asked routine questions, clipboard in hand. Sharon, voice calm despite the panic in her eyes, explained everything. When the fever started, the medication Lily had taken earlier, and how her daughter had reacted the last time she was sick. "She's allergic to sulfamethoxazole," Sharon said. "Last dose was 12 hours ago. I think her airways are inflamed. It's not just a cold." The doctor paused, eyebrow raised. "You a nurse?" Sharon shook her head. "No." The doctor nodded slowly. "You're right. We'll give her something to reduce the reaction. Good call." In the hallway, Callum sat stiffly on the waiting bench, arms crossed. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. When Sharon came out, her face was softer, though tired. "She'll be okay," she said, brushing hair off Lily's damp forehead. "They're keeping her under observation for an hour, but it's not too serious." Callum nodded. "You knew exactly what to say." Sharon didn't meet his eyes. "I studied medicine, a long time ago." He didn't ask more, but in the quiet that followed, something shifted. She sat down beside him, arms wrapped around her daughter. The hallway stretched silent, save for the distant sounds of beeping monitors and muffled footsteps. He glanced sideways at her, then back to the wall ahead. A janitor, with precise knowledge of antibiotics and allergic reactions. "Who are you, really?" He didn't voice the question. But he would not forget this night. It was past midnight when the rain turned steady. Thunder grumbled distantly, the wind beginning to push against the windows of the Frost Utilities headquarters. The rest of the office had long gone dark, except for a single floor still glowing with pale overhead light. Callum's. He was hunched over a table in the common break room, folders spread out, his sleeves rolled to his elbows. The storm had delayed a supplier delivery. It was just another in a series of slow setbacks. He took a sip of black coffee, checking the clock. 12:47 a.m. From the hallway came the soft roll of wheels. Sharon entered, hair tied in her usual messy bun, a pale blue cleaning cart gliding behind her. Her steps were quiet. She didn't expect anyone to still be there. "Oh, I didn't think," she started. Callum looked up. "You're fine, just working late. I can come back later." "No need," he said. "Stay. You're already here." Sharon nodded, her voice soft. "Okay." She began wiping counters, careful to avoid the paperwork. For a while, neither said anything, just the hum of the vending machine. Then, darkness. The lights cut out with a snap. A second later, the emergency light flickered red in the hallway. Sharon froze. "Storm must have hit the main line," Callum said. "Backup should kick in soon." But minutes passed. Still nothing. Sharon pulled her phone from her pocket, turning on the flashlight. Callum did the same. The room was bathed in two soft white beams, casting long shadows on the walls. "Well," Sharon said, sitting down across from him at the small round table. "Guess we wait." Callum raised an eyebrow. "Not afraid of the dark?" "I'm used to it." She pulled a small plastic container from her cart and opened it. The smell of cinnamon and brown sugar drifted across the table. I baked these last night. Thought I'd need something sweet to stay awake. Cookies? Technically, yes, but they're softer than they look. He hesitated, then reached for one, took a bite, raised his eyebrows. You undersold them. She smiled, just a little. Thank you. They sat like that, two people who shared nothing but silence for weeks, now eating cookies in the dark like old coworkers. Callum finally asked, You studied medicine? Sharon glanced at him, surprised. How did you? The other night. The clinic. You knew what to tell the doctor. You weren't guessing. She looked down at her hands. I was in my 3rd year, top of my class. Why'd you leave? Sharon's voice didn't shake. I got pregnant. The father disappeared. My parents said I had to terminate or leave. I chose the second option. Callum didn't reply right away. She continued, I cleaned hotel bathrooms when I was 6 months along. Stopped studying. Didn't pick up a textbook again. And yet? I still remember everything I learned, she said quietly. I don't have a degree, but I remember. He looked at her. Really looked. Her tired eyes, the creases in her coat, the threadbare cuffs. But her spine was straight. Her gaze didn't lower. There was no apology in her tone. Only facts. I don't blame them, she added. Not anymore. I chose to keep my daughter. I still choose her, every day. Outside, rain tapped against the glass. Somewhere above them, thunder rumbled again. Callum leaned back, resting his coffee cup down. My mom died when I was 16, he said suddenly. Sharon blinked. She was electrocuted. Faulty water heater. No grounding wire. It was a model I helped install during my internship. He stared down at his hands. I quit the company the next day. And now you own your own? She asked. Because I needed to build something better. Safer. Where no one else would get that call in the middle of the night. She nodded. Sounds like you chose your path too. Their flashlights dimmed slightly, batteries waning. In the silence, Callum reached out across the table, his fingers brushing lightly against the back of her hand. Sharon didn't pull away. Instead, she turned her hand over, palm up, and let it rest gently beneath his. It was a quiet Thursday night when Sharon was assigned to clean the basement storage floor of Frost Utilities, a space usually untouched, except for inventory audits and occasional equipment delivery. As she moved boxes aside to mop the floor near the back corner, something caught her eye. A thin manila folder wedged between a cabinet and the wall. Dust-covered, its label smudged, but still legible. Q1 rejected applications, internal use only. Curious, she picked it up. Not to snoop, but something about it felt off. She sat on a nearby stool, flipping through the documents. Resumes, recommendation letters, interview notes. Every single candidate had strong credentials, clean backgrounds. One even held a master's degree in energy systems. And yet, each application was stamped with the same vague rejection reason. Failed to meet performance criteria. Sharon frowned. These weren't people who failed. These were people someone didn't want. She brought the folder upstairs, intending to drop it off at the front desk for the operations manager. But as she passed through the lobby, she saw Callum exiting the elevator. He stopped when he noticed the folder in her hands. "What's that?" he asked. "Something I found in the basement. Looks like it wasn't supposed to be there," she replied, offering it. He took it, flipping it open. His expression shifted within seconds. "These were from last quarter." "Yes," Sharon said, "but most of them seem overqualified." Callum's brows furrowed. He kept walking toward the security desk and gestured for her to follow. Inside the small break room, under the harsh fluorescent lights, he laid the folder out across the table. He began scanning names, notes, cross-referencing with his phone. Sharon stood silently, watching. After 10 minutes, Callum spoke, more to himself than to her. These people were all interviewed by one HR rep. Every single rejection signed off by the same person. But I've seen 3 of these resumes before. I asked to meet them. His tone grew colder. They never even made it to second review. "What does that mean?" Sharon asked gently. Callum looked up. "It means someone's interfering with the hiring process, and I want to know why." She hesitated. "Could it be an honest error?" "No," he said flatly. "Errors don't come in patterns. This is filtered, selective. And," he flipped to a final sheet, tapping a signature, "this isn't even his handwriting." "Whose?" "The head of HR." Silence fell. Then Callum's voice lowered. "There's a deal going on, some kind of agreement between internal HR and an outside recruitment firm. These failed candidates, they're probably being redirected to private contracts with fees. Frost Utilities pays for training or placement bonuses, and someone's pocketing the difference." Sharon blinked. "You're saying it's a scam?" "A quiet one, but big enough to compromise our expansion." He stood up, the folder now firm in his hands. But before leaving, he paused and looked at her. "You brought this forward. I wasn't sure if it meant anything." "It means everything." His tone softened. "And now you're part of this." She hesitated. Then he asked, more serious this time, "Would you be willing to present this to the executive board?" Sharon's eyes widened. "Me? You're the one who found it. Your words would carry weight." She looked down, then slowly nodded. "Yes, I will. Even if it's uncomfortable?" "I've stayed silent before," she said quietly, "and I regret it every day. Not this time." For a moment, neither moved. Then Callum offered a nod, not just of approval, but respect. That night, as Sharon walked back to the cleaning cart, the storm outside had passed. But a storm of another kind had just begun. The boardroom on the 18th floor was unusually full that morning. The long glass table reflected the tension in the air. Department heads adjusted their ties, assistants hovered near the corners, and Callum Frost stood at the head, unflinching as always. Except today, someone new sat among them. Sharon, in her plain white blouse and dark trousers, hands clasped in her lap, looked like she didn't belong, but her eyes were steady. Callum opened the meeting without preamble. "Before we begin updates on the upcoming production expansion, there's something we need to address." He turned toward Sharon. "Miss Reed, if you will." A few eyebrows raised. "The cleaning staff? Here?" Sharon stood. Her voice wasn't loud, but it didn't waver. "Last week, I found a folder of rejected job applications in the basement storage. Curious, I reviewed them. They were strong candidates. Degrees, experience, even internal referrals. All were dismissed for the same reason. Failed to meet performance standards. But none had even passed the first interview." She handed out photocopies of several resumes, each one neatly highlighted. These weren't bad applicants. They were filtered out, and repeatedly, by one person. A low murmur rippled through the room. The head of Human Resources, Mr. Dalton, adjusted his collar, his voice calm. "Miss Reed isn't familiar with our recruitment process. What she's suggesting is speculative." Callum leaned forward. "You're right, Dalton. She's not from HR." He opened a folder of his own and pulled out a document. "But I had our legal department verify the signature on these rejection memos." He slid the paper across the table. "They don't match yours." Dalton stiffened. "Are you accusing me?" Callum cut in, his tone flat but sharp. "I'm stating facts. The signature was forged, and the rejected candidates were all redirected to a private agency that just so happens to split referral fees with one of our internal vendors." A beat of silence. No one moved. Dalton opened his mouth, then shut it again. He looked down at his hands. Callum stood up slowly. "You see, I'm not here to humiliate anyone, but this company, this vision, was built to be better, safer, cleaner. I won't let quiet deals rot the foundation." He turned to the room. "From now on, we will audit our hiring pipeline. Transparent, every stage." Then he glanced back at Sharon. She didn't owe us anything. She could have kept quiet. But she spoke up, with nothing to gain. That's the kind of integrity I want at this table." Sharon sat back down, breath shallow. Her heart pounded in her chest, not from fear, but from something unfamiliar. Someone had just stood up for her. Publicly, unapologetically, and not just anyone. Him. No applause followed. Just quiet agreement, a few silent nods, but that was enough. For the first time in a long while, Sharon didn't feel invisible. Callum closed the folder. Meeting adjourned. As the room emptied, he walked past her and said softly, "Thank you." Sharon didn't reply. She just looked at him, eyes shining but steady, and nodded once. The kind of nod that says, "I'm not used to being seen, but I see you too." The offer came quietly. No grand speech, no boardroom audience. Just the two of them, standing beside the vending machine in the dimly lit break room at 11:43 p.m., where she had once handed him a cup of bitter coffee with trembling hands. Now, it was him who offered something more than a drink. "I want you to stay," Callum said. "Full-time, internal quality and welfare oversight. It's a new position, but you're the reason it exists." Sharon blinked, her hands loosely holding the mop handle. She hadn't expected this. Not like this. "You mean, a real job? With a badge?" She half joked, then quickly caught herself. "Sorry. That was—" "I do mean that," he interrupted. "Not as a favor, not out of pity, because I trust your judgment." She stared at the tile floor, heart pounding. Trust. That word again. Sharon exhaled. "I can't." Callum's expression didn't change. He waited. "I can't just build a life from someone else's hand," she continued. "You gave me a chance, and I'll always be grateful. But I've lived long enough being the person someone helped. I need to know I can stand on my own." Callum nodded once, slowly. "That makes sense." She gave a small, apologetic smile, her voice soft. "Thank you for everything." Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. The storm had returned, soft at first, but steady, with rain drumming against the office windows. By the time Sharon reached the front lobby, it was pouring. She stepped outside, hugging her thin coat closer around her. Her daughter was at the sitters tonight, warm and safe. For a moment, that was all that mattered. "Wait," came his voice behind her. She turned. Callum stepped out of the shadows, holding a folded umbrella. "You'll catch a cold." She hesitated. He stepped closer, the rain gently speckling his shirt collar. "I used to think getting through a storm alone made me stronger," he said quietly. "But lately, I wonder if standing still, just waiting for someone, is harder." He handed her the umbrella. She took it with careful fingers, but didn't open it. Callum met her eyes, and for once, there was no calculation in his expression. No walls, just the kind of quiet honesty that rarely survived in boardrooms or late-night reports. "If you walk away now, I won't stop you," he said. "But if there's even a small part of you that wants to stay, not for the job, not for gratitude, but because you believe there's something here." He let the sentence hang. Sharon looked at the umbrella in her hands. The storm around them blurred the sidewalk into silver streaks. One step away, and she'd disappear into the night. One step forward, and— "I'm not easy to walk with," she said, voice low. "I've got a toddler who cries at 3 a.m., no degree, and still forget to eat lunch half the week." Callum gave a rare, crooked smile. "I don't need someone perfect, just someone who stays." A beat passed. Sharon looked up at him, her lips trembling, not from fear, but the fragile hope rising in her chest. "Then if you're not afraid of walking with a single mother," she said, "I guess I'm not afraid of staying." She opened the umbrella and moved closer, lifting it above both their heads. For the first time in a long time, they didn't need to rush anywhere. A year later, the Frost Utilities logo gleamed brighter than ever above the doors of its new manufacturing wing. But this time, below it, a smaller sign drew just as much attention. "Family First, now with on-site childcare for all staff." The ribbon-cutting ceremony had wrapped. The guests were gone. The last of the corporate handshakes had faded into the soft hum of nightfall. But behind the main building, laughter still lingered in the garden strung with warm fairy lights. Sharon stood at the portable grill, flipping small cinnamon pancakes, sleeves rolled up, a smear of flour on her cheek. Her blonde hair was pulled into its usual lazy bun, loose strands catching the breeze. She wore a crisp white blouse and dark jeans, not new, but clean and pressed, simple, comfortable. From across the garden, Callum watched her. He was no longer the man who walked past everyone with eyes on his phone. Tonight, he wasn't the CEO with a schedule down to the minute. He was just a man, quietly carrying 2 plates toward the woman who had changed everything. She smiled when he reached her. "Second round?" He set the plates down. "Third. Your fault." A small giggle erupted nearby. Their daughter, no longer a baby, now a sprightly toddler in a pink dress, was toddling across the grass with a toy spatula in hand, chasing after bubbles. "She's going to think kitchens smell like cinnamon in meetings," Sharon teased. "Could be worse," Callum said, stepping closer. His voice softened. "She could have grown up without all this." Sharon looked around. The garden, the lights, the chatter from employees staying late to enjoy the small, unofficial celebration. She nodded. "Yeah, it could have." Callum hesitated for a moment, then wrapped one arm lightly around her waist, not asking, just being there. Present. Gentle. "I never thanked you," he said, "for that night in the rain, for taking the umbrella, for staying." Sharon leaned into him, not saying anything at first. "You didn't need to," she finally replied. "You built a place where people like me don't have to start from scratch." He looked at her. "You didn't start from scratch. You started from hope." A breeze passed through, rustling the curtains tied at the back porch, brushing past the old umbrella, now hanging on a wooden hook along the balcony railing. The fabric was faded, a little torn, just like the day it had been shared. Next to it, a small wooden plaque had been nailed to the beam. "Hope does not need thunder, just one hand that stays." Sharon looked up at it, blinking. "You kept it?" "I keep things that matter," Callum said simply. Their daughter shrieked with laughter as a soap bubble popped on her nose. Sharon wiped her hands on a towel and walked over to scoop her up, spinning her once, light and joyful. When she returned to the grill, Callum had added another pancake to the pan. "I didn't know you could cook," she said with a smirk. "I still can't," he replied, "but I'm willing to burn a few things trying." She laughed, and something in him relaxed. There were no vows tonight, no kisses in the rain, no grand pronouncements, just shared silence, shared warmth, and a shared path forward. Not perfect, but real. And for both of them, that was more than enough. Thank you for listening to From a Lottery Ticket to a New Spring, a soul-stirring story about second chances, quiet resilience, and the kind of love that doesn't need grand gestures, just a hand that stays. If Sharon's journey moved you, if Callum's quiet growth reminded you that change is always possible, and if that little umbrella on the balcony meant more than just shelter from the rain, then please, support the channel by hitting that hype button, subscribing for more heartwarming, grounded stories, and sharing this episode with someone who believes in hope, no matter how small it starts. This is Soul-Stirring Stories, where we believe every quiet heart deserves to be heard. Until next time, stay soft, stay strong, and stay with us.